So domestic violence is just, I think an ugly thing without a doubt. And so we brought Jim in, and he's going to kind of give us his insight of what's really happening and how some of the warning signs and just more information than I understand about it. So I'm going to let you dive into.
Yeah, I brought along a few tools. Unfortunately, one is a news article about a murder-suicide that happened late Saturday to early Sunday morning. And believe it or not, this couple started getting into a very vocal argument during their wedding reception, apparently over the terms of their premarital agreement, which is odd because most of the time when I do a premarital agreement, I feel that couple has a better chance because they actually discuss issues that other couples may not discuss beforehand. But apparently there were some terms in this premarital agreement that weren't sitting well with one of the parties, so it got into a vocal fight that eventually resulted in 3 911 calls by wife. During the third, the dispatcher could clearly hear a number of gunshot sounds.
Never a good sign.
Discovery by the time that they get to the property that she's been shot and killed, and he then took his .45 and killed himself with a single shot to the head. Further investigation found, I think, over 100 firearms in the house with the accompanying ammunition.
Is that on your checklist for a pre-marriage checklist? How many guns do they have?
Well, I don't know that there's a correlation, but I mean, there's certainly a greater chance of like a fatal injury if there is access to guns and emotions get heated. Unfortunately, I think a lot of gun violence shows that the victim is often an intimate or somebody that they know.
Did that happen the day after the wedding?
It happened the evening of.
The evening of the wedding. Wow.
So apparently their reception went on to the later hours of the evening or the early hours into Sunday, and by I think like 1:40 something that Sunday morning, the calls were coming in. And in a rather short time, it ended in the tragic death of both of them. Oh. So anyway, it is one of these things. I wanted to talk about it today because competing with Breast Cancer Awareness Month,
right.
October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
So are we supposed to wear black on that instead of pink? Not trying to make fun of it, but
no,
it's an important subject.
I don't think people really have a concept as to how prevalent it is, how easy it is to particularly fall into the trap of being labeled an aggressor in domestic violence, nor do they have any perception as to the potential ramifications. So what I handed out was a little bookmark that I got from the local Seroptimus clubs, which basically helps you sort of identify as to whether or not there's abuse in your relationship. And basically you can see, physical violence is always a dead giveaway, but it's not just physical violence. I think domestic violence at its core has to do with control, and it has to do with intimidation, withholding money, withholding the cell phone, turning off the cell phone, otherwise trying to control somebody, following their movements, otherwise harassing them. Any of these will, under the law, trigger potentially a claim of domestic violence.
Even mental abuse, basically?
Well, it can be. Let me go through, because on the civil side of things, we have something called a domestic violence restraining order. If you get tagged with one of those, you're going to know it, and you're going to know it for a number of years because of the ramifications that are associated, not the least of which, to begin with, is that you have to forfeit your right to possess any firearm.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So now you're looking at potentially violations of federal law in the event that you happen to get caught having not turned in or in possession of a firearm. But domestic violence basically is an act of abuse, and it doesn't take necessarily an intentional act. It could be reckless. And it includes not only, like the personal injury, but sexual assault, an apprehension of imminent serious bodily injury, or to engage in behavior that could otherwise be restrained under another chapter, which includes such things as harassing, destroying personal property, contacting either directly or indirectly, male or otherwise, coming within a specified distance, disturbing the peace. Some judges have described it. You could probably identify facts in almost any type of relationship that could fit into this. And if it does, particularly in instances where you have a marriage relationship and you may be talking about spousal support, or you have children of the relationship, the consequences then become severe.
No doubt about it, especially involving other individuals, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So oftentimes, if a case, let's say it's a dissolution or a paternity case, when it starts out with a domestic violence application, particularly in instances where there's an arrest, a lot of times the defendant, perpetrator, alleged perpetrator, has no idea as to the ramifications. You would not know how many times I'll have somebody who came in and said, well, yeah, I was arrested, and then, I go to court, and working with the public defender, we spoke and we figured that we'll just enter a no contest on this lesser included charge.
Yeah, no big deal, right?
Big deal.
Yeah, big deal.
Big deal. Big legal problems. And when we come back, I want to talk about, some of the consequences that would arise from that, and just how long those consequences can be in place.